At the point where you want to use and access the diagram window, you will typically have some ease program that's already running and debugged, and then you'll use the diagram window to provide the means to build a high quality graphical user interface, or GUI, to the program, and that'll make it easy to control the program and easy to use it and examine its outputs. So here, let's just start with the basics in this first video. So I'm going to start by just building a simple ease program that does a simple job. So we're going to build one that predicts the temperature of a fluid leaving a valve. So I'm going to set the fluid in the string $, and then the inlet conditions I'll set with the temperature and pressure. And I'm going to set the outlet pressure, and then we can use the upstream temperature and pressure to determine the inlet enthalpy, and an energy balance on the valve, assuming that it's adiabatic. Just says that the outlet enthalpy must be the same as the inlet enthalpy, and I can use the outlet enthalpy and pressure to get the outlet temperature. So that's what this program does, is it just predicts the outlet temperature. I'm going to go ahead and set some units and some alternate units for each of these variables, and I'll just make sure that the ease code works. And once I'm sure it works, then I'm sort of in business to build a GUI for it, and that's going to be what the diagram window does. So if I want to access the diagram window, I either select the diagram window from the Windows menu, which I'm doing here, or easier is just to use the shortcut key Control D. So Control D will just take me right to the diagram window. The diagram window itself operates in two distinct modes, and these are referred to as either the development mode or the application mode. So when the toolbar here in the diagram window is visible, it's in the development mode, and this is the mode where you're actually working on the diagram window. So you're going to modify its content, you're going to set it up. If you want to switch modes, there's a bunch of different ways to do that. You can use the show hide diagram toolbar command here in the options menu. If you click the diagram window button up here in the button bar, that'll change modes as well. Usually I just use the Control D shortcut key, and that'll toggle between the two modes. Or this button up here, A or D, if you click that, you'll toggle between the two modes as well. When the toolbar is not visible, so like now the toolbar is gone, the diagram window is in application mode. So at this point, the content in the diagram window is locked. You're done working on it, and you're using it to interact with your program. So the toolbar is the easiest way to work on the diagram window when you put it back in development mode. The functions of each of these buttons in the toolbar are indicated here, and we'll go through each of these buttons in the course. We're going to stick to just some of the simpler ones for this video. You should note that the lower set of buttons here, there's 16 buttons down here that are only accessible with the professional version of ease. The diagram window must be in development mode in order to make any changes to it, right? So in development mode, I can place text and graphic items onto it, and I can move or modify existing text and graphics items. So let's start here by just placing a graphics item on the diagram window that's going to serve as the basis for our GUI, right? So we probably want some kind of a picture of a valve where we can then insert inlet controls and also output indicators. So there's three ways to place graphical objects on the diagram window. One is to make your own graphical item in a drawing program, so external to ease, and then just paste it into the diagram window, and you can do that in various formats, and we'll talk about that in a later video in the course. You can also just build your own graphics item right here in the diagram window using sort of the basic primitive shapes that are available in the toolbar, like lines and rectangles and circles. And finally, if you have the professional version of ease, you can browse through a palette that's available in the toolbar and access a library of useful graphics items that come with ease, and you can add to this library as well. And this again will be discussed in a later video. So in this first video, let's just draw a valve. So I'll select circle, and maybe have a cross lines with a handle, and then an inlet and an outlet here. Maybe the inlet has an arrow and the outlet has an arrow, and that's a rudimentary picture of a valve. And one thing to notice here is that in the bottom of the diagram window you have the status bar that's showing both where my cursor is, as well as the name of whatever item is underneath my cursor. So here, if I hover over the circle that I just drew, you can see it's telling me that I'm hovering over that circle. So the basic functionality of the diagram window is to provide a user with an easy way to control your ease program and also examine its results. So we need to allow the user to specify inputs to the program and also look at outputs. And the most basic way to do that is with the text item. So I'm going to select the text item from the toolbar, and it's going to bring up this modify diagram text item dialog. And you can see there's 4 types of text items that you can add. So plain text and formatted text. And then here, ease input variables and ease output variables. So let's add an input variable that will allow the user to specify the upstream pressure, which is the variable Pin. So we'll select the input variable and then select Pin from this list of ease variables that appear in this box. You can see that I can indicate whether the name of the variable itself will be shown or not, whether its units are shown or not. If I select show alternate units and value here from this drop down box, then the input will be interpreted as a value entered in the alternate unit. So here the user will be entering the pressure in megapascals. So I'll do the same thing for inlet temperature and I guess outlet pressure. These inputs are basically interpreted then when the diagram window is open. They'll be interpreted as equations that set the value of these variables to whatever the user entered, right in the equations window. And therefore, if I try to solve now with the diagram window open, I'm going to find that I've overconstrained my problem, right? I have equations from the diagram window that are conflicting with equations that I've already set in the equations window. If I close the diagram window, then those equations from the diagram window are ignored. But if I open it, I've got variables like Pin defined twice. So I am either able to take care of this by commenting out the inputs in the equations window, or maybe even better, I would just use a directive like $if not. So here I'm going to put a $if not diagram window and $end if around the equations that I want removed if the diagram window is open, but otherwise I'd like them to be still in the equations window. And now you can see that the problem's going to solve okay when the diagram window is open, and it's also going to solve okay when the diagram window is closed. A really useful way to control the values of the inputs that users are allowed to enter is through limits on these variables. So, the limits that you would already perhaps impose on variables are going to be imposed on the inputs that users can set. So if I open the variable information window and I set reasonable limits for the input variables, so here Pin, Pout, and Tn, those are going to be used to constrain what the user can set for those variables. So yeah, I don't know, for Pout, probably shouldn't go below 0. It's an absolute pressure. It shouldn't go above Pin, right? That wouldn't make sense for a valve. Pin should not be set below Pout, and there may be some upper limit. I'm not going to set one here. And Tn might have its own range as well. Now if I go back to the diagram window and I'll put it in application mode, and I'll try to enter a value for Pout that's either below 0 or above Pin, you can see that I get this error message that comes up saying those are not allowable values, so you've controlled what the user can enter here. Alright, let's go ahead and add an output variable. So we want to see the predicted value of Tout, and we'll show it in degrees Celsius, so that's its alternate unit here. And if I solve, I can now see what Tout is. If I change the value of an input variable, so I'll change the inlet pressure here, and I don't solve, you'll notice that the value of this output variable is changed to a gray color, and that just indicates that this is no longer a valid output given what the inputs are right now. Alright, so let's do a couple of additional things to improve this first GUI. Maybe we want to let the user also select the fluid that they want to examine, and we can do that by making the string variable, which is $, here, an input on the diagram window. So I'm going to move the equation for $, in the equations window into the $if not diagram window clause here, and then I'll add a text item that sets $, as an input variable. So now the user can manually type in whatever fluid he or she wants to look at, This may not be the best approach because now your user has to know all the names of the fluids that are available in ease, and also maybe you don't want just any fluid to be used with your program. So we can also restrict users to choosing from a list of allowable strings, and you do that by selecting here string list from the modified diagram text item window. So here I'm going to include fluids like carbon dioxide, water, and toluene. And if I put the diagram window back into application mode, you can see that now there's a drop-down menu that contains these selections. I can also map a string list of options to an input string list that maybe is a little bit easier to interpret and understand. And we'll talk about that in a later video. All right. Finally, I probably want to let the user initiate calculations right from the diagram window just with a click of a button. And you do that by selecting the Add Calculate button here. And you want a calculation button. There's some other options we'll talk about later, but we want a calculation button. And we put this into application mode, and you can see here I have a fully functioning GUI that the user can use to interact with my program. I can turn this into a standalone piece of software that somebody with no knowledge of the underlying ease code or even any license for ease can use as a distributable, right? And that's basically what the next step would be for a nice ease program that has a diagram window, is you can now deploy this and distribute it to a user base as an executable file.